Oh, fuck, you started it.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Talking Tricks. As you just heard, we have a guest today.
Fuck.
All right. So, as always, joined by me, Frank.
Jason. And today,
yeah,
we've got...
Isaiah, hi.
Yes, Isaia Gonzalez. You may have seen his lanky tricks lying around somewhere on Instagram. So
Yep, they are lanky.
He's here right now. So, how you feeling, Isaiah?
I'm chilling. This is pretty exciting, to be honest.
Yeah. So today we're actually going to be talking about battles, which is something I'm not super crazy about, actually. But I got super interested in it just talking to you guys about it in the car, and I thought this would make a really good conversation. So,
For sure. And I'm also not super into, like, the idea of battles and, like, participating in battles. But, like, battles are, like, I feel a necessary part of tricking.
Yeah.
And determining, like, you know, like, a level of hierarchy between triggers. It's not necessary, but at the same time, like...
But it's a conversation that has to happen at some point, because,
Right.
like, obviously, I mean, tricking is going to progress to a point. Like, so I was talking to Jason about this, and I was like, I don't see tricking getting the Olympics. I don't see tricking getting anything big like that. But then I found out that skateboarding was going to be in the Olympics this year, for the
Right.
Summer Olympics. And I was like, all right, hang on. Like, if skateboarding is in the Olympics, and it's that fucking subjective, then I'm pretty sure tricking can make it to the Olympics. And actually, it feels like inevitable to me. Like, it's
Right.
going to happen at some point. Like, it might be 10 years, 20 years down the line, but, like, it's going to happen.
Right.
So this is a conversation that has to happen. And so, like, when I talk about battles, I mean, like, how we lay out battles. What are we incentivizing? What are we de-incentivizing? What does the metagame become if we lay out these rules for battles? And, like, what are the pros and cons of it?
Right. Who judges these battles additionally, and, like, just other topics about... I mean, it's a very large conversation, and like you said, like, how does the metagame develop over time with these rules in place?
Yeah, considering that I'm actually for battles, I've always, since day one of tricking, I've always been, like, really intrigued with just how the battle systems are and how hyped they get. But I'm also really into them, and, like, if anybody asks, like, who's battling, if I'm feeling good, I'm one of the first people that wants to go, because I just like the idea of it. I don't really get stressed out from it. It just kind of gives me, like, a nice adrenaline boost that I end up just using to kind of have
Do
fun
crazy
with
shit.
it. Yeah, I
Improve your
just
performance.
Yeah, and I think it is a healthy part of tricking, where as long as you're not taking it like the one video, angriest tricking battle of all time, or like how the standard b-boy battles will end. Yeah. I think it most certainly has a place in the tricking community, but I think any of that shit where it starts getting handsy with each other and actually getting mad about it is whack.
Yeah, I don't like that toxic bullshit. I think that's kind of why I've been, like, don't get me wrong, I'm not anti-battle. Like, I definitely see the place in tricking for battles, and I get excited about battles. I love watching battles. But when I'm sitting at home, I'm watching samples. I'm not watching battles.
Right.
Personally. Yeah. And I know that people do. I know that there's a lot of people that do sit at home watching battles, and that's cool.
How's it going?
So, but, like, it's definitely a necessary, like, it's a part of the tricking culture. Is like, oh my god, Michael Guthrie and Loop battled at fucking Loop Kicks this year. Like, it was crazy, blah, blah. Like, you know what I mean? It's
and that battle was crazy, by the way.
I did actually watch that battle a few times.
I did too. But I feel like I'm in the same boat as you. Like, I'm not very into battles, but I understand, like, the cultural significance of battles and, like, you know, their place in, like, tricking.
Yeah.
You know.
And so first, before we, like, take a straight dive into this, I actually forgot to mention that Isaia Gonzalez, he's a Florida tricker. He actually also hosts, or I should say co-hosts, Trick Hungry with Sean and Attila. So that's kind of one of his namesakes. He actually, you helped coordinate the battles there, right?
Yeah.
So,
for the most part, Sean and Attila did the important heavy lifting background stuff. I just kind of, like, they just gave me the task of, you know, figure out who should we invite, how should we get them here, and when the gathering starts, have a good time. They've offered saying, you know, that seeing a host actually have a good time at a gathering, because that's rare, because it's really hard to do that.
Yeah,
and I was tasked with tricking during it. It's still a feat to complete, because it is kind of difficult to actually go in on tricking and then also be a host. And my task was mainly to ensure that the events made sense to happen when they were to happen, see who would be judging, And I definitely could do better in the future with that. But it seemed like everybody had a great time, so they don't know that.
We just had the conversation and found out that all your judging and all your rules were just bullshit. It was so bad.
Well,
No.
I mean, if it was actually Towels that kind of, him and Sam Casper were the ones that coordinated that, and I do thank them for that.
I actually think they were cool rules for the time. So if you don't know, the way that Trick Hungry did their battles is that, was it 3 judges? Mm-hmm. You had 3 judges, and they each individually judged a different thing. So it's not like they had their overall opinion on something. They had like something they were looking for specifically. And I actually really like that concept a lot. That was very interesting to me.
Yeah. Right. So, I think that's definitely a very viable way of judging tricking passes, especially amongst multiple judges.
Yeah.
I think that would be one of the kind of formats that would require maybe like a lot of judges, like,
it would,
like 5 or 7 even.
And we'd have to assign a certain weight to it, I think.
Right.
Nice. We'd have to assign a certain weight to it, I think, because I feel like maybe not everything is equal. Like, I don't know. To me, like, if someone does a super crazy power trick, like first in the world type shit, and they get a 10 on that, I don't think that should be on the same level as someone who's super, super clean and got like a 10 on, like, you know,
tornado, hook, aerial, backside 9.
That's what I'm saying. So like,
when
the judges are weighed the same, it's kind of like, you know, fucks up the scale in that sense.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I would definitely say judging a tricking battle versus tricking in a tricking battle, your perspective, and I would hope that maybe other judges could, just put some insight into it, maybe in the comments. It definitely shifts your perspective from being a judge to being a tricker. It is not almost one and the same, to be honest. You may have a great tricking knowledge. However, just because someone does something that you might categorize as like a more hype combo, it may not be the better combo, if that makes sense. Yeah. Typically, those aren't mutually exclusive. However, though, like, we've seen it in cases of, like, Aiden Kennedy versus Ilya Vitor, and, like, Ilya does, like, I think in one of the passes years ago at Hooked, he does, like, a quad, falls on it or something, but it was still a quad, and it was way more exciting than what Aiden did.
Yeah.
And I guess a way of thinking of it is, like, what trickers would consider a safe combo is typically what's going to win you that battle.
Yeah.
But
that's kind of what the conversation I want to have today is I want to come up with a battle system that de-incentivizes that.
I agree.
I want some way because I feel like
for there to be some risk and reward.
Yeah, because in gymnastics it's very safe. It's very much like you could do these skills and you can't do anything past that because it's dangerous or because it's blah blah blah, right, or because like some other athlete might get hurt because they're trying it or to try to beat you or something like that. Tricking is very much a boundary pushing thing, and we want to incentivize trickers just doing the absolute balls to the wall craziest shit.
Right.
So okay, well, on the same line, I guess let's talk about current battle systems that exist and kind of
they're garbage. They're dookie. Not all of them. Well, holy shit.
Yeah, no.
Okay,
some bad ones.
I'm sorry about this. Right. So I got mad respect for Flip Like Z. He's one of the greatest acrobats that we have of our time, low key. Mm-hmm. That dude is like, he's not a tricker. He's not really a free runner. I don't know. He says he's like a flipper or whatever, but he's an amazing acrobat. Watch his videos on YouTube. Insane the shit that he's doing. Right. Nothing else. No one else is really doing it like him and as easy on floor and on tramp. However, he openly does not know that much about tricking. So why was he a judge for one of the battles?
Wait, where was this?
The most recent Hooked. At like 2019.
Wait, actually?
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm not.
So I guess
I'm
that's
very against that. Yeah.
So
I like you, Flip Like Z.
Yeah,
really cool.
but if you're not a self-proclaimed tricker, or you're not super active in the tricking community, or even know a lot about tricking terminology, or just trick theory, like you don't have to know the terminology per se, but at least understand like when someone lands in Mega, it's this crazy or this not crazy, or
Right. Well, okay. So to take
to
take a step back, the issue Isaiah is trying to highlight is like the current judges used, or historical judges in tricking battles have been not the most
suboptimal.
Yeah, they have not been the choicest of picks.
Danny Graham judging Michael Guthrie
when
they have actual beef.
Obvious beef, yeah, or
conflicts of interest.
Yeah, obvious conflicts of interest. not knowing the culture of tricking, not understanding the significance of certain aspects of tricking. Yeah. I
mean, that's why trickers have to be in charge of all of that.
Right. That's the thing. Essentially, what it comes down to is like not trickers judging tricking battles, and that needs to.
Not to say that Danny Graham's not a tricker, But
Okay.
there is you have
An
to
obvious conflict of
understand.
interest.
During that time frame, he had open conflict of interest with Michael Guthrie, and so it's a meme for a reason. Andrew Franklin is the world's best tricker circa 2015.
Yeah, no, this is a conversation that has to be had. The Trickstar battles, like, I think everyone unanimously agrees, kind of bullshit at the end. Like, maybe there was good intentions there for, like, what they wanted to run, and I'm not trying to shit on that, but let's be real, something went wrong. At some point, that's, like, and we got to figure it out, and obviously the judge thing seems to be the most apparent answer.
Well, I think that the Trickstar battles actually started out really strong too. And I thought that a lot of it looked really good. It had a lot of what I would want to see in a 1v1 competitive competition.
Yeah.
And up until a lot of the controversy, it looked really legit.
Promising.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this
I was
could
excited. They had biographies. They had, like, all this shit. It was
Yeah.
cool.
I actually remember because I just got into tricking, and those were some of the first videos that got me into tricking. When that explains why I'm so into battles as well, because I used to watch those videos all the time after high school. Every day I would just go in, watch it, and I'd be like, cool, I want to try Terautograph because I didn't even understand what the fucking double cork was.
I want to
yet.
try front flip times 5 because Sesh did.
Yes. I thought Seth should have won that. And so
Please don't do front flip times 5 in your battle passes.
do it. So now, this, I feel like in the context of a gathering, I feel as though everything is a go. Do what you please. It's a gathering. It's meant to be casual. I have no problem with that. I actually think it's funny if you even, like, it's not, I don't feel like a gathering battle unless there's money involved. Needs to be taken serious, and even then, not that serious.
Yeah.
However, if we were to talk about something like the X Games or even the Olympics, you definitely know that for skateboarding, they're going to have judges that are going to be the best picked for that position based off of their knowledge and understanding of the sport that they're judging. Yeah. So,
well, is that not what Trickstar was trying to do? That's kind of my issue with Trickstar, is they weren't trying to be a gathering battle, like, haha, this is fun. They're like, this is the thing.
This is
that's going to decide.
Well, and that's the thing is, in my opinion, Trickstar came the closest to establishing that. Was like it was an attempt at trying to say who the world's best tricker was.
Travis Wong, bring it back.
Yeah,
honestly, it was dope. I liked it.
It was, and,
like I do not want Adrenaline in charge of this. I'm a very openly against Adrenaline. So, like, fuck Adrenaline.
Full disclosure, full disclosure, it can't be Adrenaline.
Okay, I'm gonna say
Kane McGuire, check your email.
Ooh, yikes. I'm not completely against it. I think I have some respect for it, and I think it could do better, but I think they're pushing in a new whatever the word is. They're
frontier.
pushing tricking a new frontier that has been heavily underexplored. And I do appreciate what it is doing and trying to do to an extent.
You mean Adrenaline?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The
new frontier of exploiting
give
people.
Credit
I'm kidding.
Give credit where it's due.
No, we could agree to disagree. And that's fine.
Anyway.
But
essentially, though, like, back on topic, like, Trickstar was attempting to be was trying to come off as, like, this very competitive competition, and it actually comes close to a lot of the rules that, like, we would like to see in competitive 1v1 battles.
Yeah.
And that's, like, allowing trickers time to prepare for themselves for the next pass. It's a quiet, prepared, environment. There's no one else on the floor that's...
whoever went first, did they go first every pass?
I actually am not certain. So, I mean, that may be something that we would disagree on. But
yeah, let us know in the comments what you actually think should happen. Because with 1v1s, we actually were sitting here talking for 2 hours longer than we should have on it.
We talked for a long ass time.
We were discussing the idea of what we personally have seen in the tricking community, where my personal opinion is I think the idea of having passes versus timed battles, I feel as though passes work far better for 1v1s, because for anybody that has been in a battle, as Frank said before, you go from having an arsenal, like a fucking lexicon of tricking moves and ideas, and as soon as you get into battle, you got 10 now. Because it's very easy to black out.
You forget your whole arsenal of tricking.
And it can be even worse where we've seen it happen, and it's kind of a low-key thing. I don't really hear people talk about it too often, but if it's a timed battle, I think the worst thing to see is when you can tell someone didn't get to show off their best because the other person just had a longer combo and
they did
shoot up more of
marathon
the time.
combo.
Right. Nothing wrong with the marathon combo, But during a timed battle, if somebody's using that, knowing that it's to chew out the time so that somebody else can't show, I feel like that's less of a show of who's the better tricker and more of who can just keep the counter counting down longer against them.
And I agree, like that's what I'm trying to say. So like moving forward with like really competitive, like let's say Olympic level tricking battles, obviously I think time battles is just a complete no-go because that, exactly what you said, becomes the metagame. Like how you win tricking battles all of a sudden becomes how long can I make this combo last so that he only has one pass and I have two passes or some shit like that.
Which we all know is whack, because if you want to see people throw down, not people get exhausted and then just chew up fucking time.
We want to see tricking ass shit. Like that's what we want to incentivize. We want to incentivize like, yo, this dude just bit the other dude. That shit was crazy. Like he did the same combo, but like he did it way better, and it was fucking awesome. Like, you know what I mean? So.
And thinking of it in the sense of the X Games or something like the Olympics again, going back to skating, because I feel as though we all agree that skating has the closest resemblance to how tricking would be showcased in a professional level.
Yeah.
But the difference,
because it's so subjective. Yeah.
Exactly. But the difference that still has to be overcome is tricking is a still head-to-head sport. There are going to be at least two competitors on the floor at a given time. Or you can still even do it with just one person. We'll go on that later.
But like when we think about tricking battles, we're like a person versus another person.
Right. Well, that's the thing. Like you're highlighting now is that tricking is unique from skateboarding and unique from gymnastics. It's two closest, relatives in the Olympics right now.
In my opinion.
And because of the fact that, like, you in a 1v1 battle context, you would have two people on the floor at the same time. Whereas with gymnastics, doing, like, a single floor pass or whatever, and skateboarding doing their two passes that are timed.
Yep. Yeah, we did research on skateboarding Olympics.
And to understand our standpoint as well, we have maybe not a profound understanding, but we definitely understand that gymnastics, in a sense, equals rigidity. It is about we all know when someone's doing something. I'm sorry for saying this. There's some, like, Simone Biles is one of the fucking best acrobats of our time, but I don't ever want to see a tricker walk around like they have a stick up their ass or do a full like they have a stick up their ass.
Okay, hold on, really quick, because we mentioned Simone Biles, and she's got a whole trick named after her. I mean, full in, full out on floors named the Biles, but like our boy Ethan did that shit from cartwheel, and no one said nothing.
I mean, to be fair, I think she was the first woman to do that, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me on that. Right. But that's my understanding of it.
Okay.
So, like, that's pretty dope.
I mean, it is. I mean, nothing about detracting the achievement from Simone.
But at the same time,
my boy Ethan,
Ethan he was like, yo, what if I did full, but then I did a full after and just fucking did that shit.
And then he did it on floor.
No, but that highlights the difference between tricking and gymnastics to me. So to me, it's not like, oh, tricking is better than gymnastics or gymnastics is better than tricking. It's like they both value very different things, in my opinion.
Right.
So, to me, tricking is very boundary breaking. It's like, let's see how far we can go. Let's see how creative we can get. Let's see blah, blah, blah. And gymnastics, they really, really value cleanliness. They really value, can you stick this landing? Can you do it as gracefully as possible? Can you do all the shit? Like, that's what they value, and all the glory to them. Like, I think that's awesome. You know what I mean? But there's just a fundamental disagreement about what the tricking community likes.
Yeah, what is valued in terms of tricking versus what's valued in terms of gymnastics.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually a really good point, too, because, like you said, like, if I'm judging a tricking pass as a judge, I'm not going to be I'm not going to be very harsh on someone who, like, rebounds
stumbled or something,
or rebounds hard off their dub and does kind of like a recovery B kick style. Like, I'm still gonna be pretty hype.
I think that's awesome.
Right? Like, I mean, I'm gonna be like, oh, yo, he did that. Like,
and he did B kick after. No,
punch B kick. And so, or reverse pop B kick.
Probably
anyway,
reverse pop.
Yeah, talking tricks. But essentially, though, like, I'm not gonna be as hard on someone for having like a recovery out of a trick because they still technically landed that trick, and that's all that really matters to me watching it. And while yes, like, style and cleanliness do play a role in how I'll grade that, it's not like it's not the most important. All hope isn't lost.
Yeah, not like gymnastics where it's like, oh, they kind of stumbled.
They stepped out.
That's like 5 points off. Like,
they stepped out of their full, like,
they were would be the tricking judges would be tricking judges, not gymnastics. So
Well,
a stumble,
yeah.
like a recovery, at almost in a sense, it won't necessarily add, but I feel like it would definitely be like, okay, and whoa, their head just touched the floor, but it was just their hair. Let me look at the slow-mo. Oh, still counts, great.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, if the next person who does the same move stomps it, well, yeah, they clearly did it better. However, we don't discount what the person did before.
Okay, you're actually hitting on something I wanted to talk about, which is the meta rules of tricking, which is like what trickers already understand as the rules, but are just like unspoken. And what I mean by that is like, for example, the rules of like, if you touch your hand down, it doesn't count. You know what I mean? It's like, as long as you didn't touch your hand down, it didn't count.
Hand,
like,
knee, anything
head,
other than just your
feet,
your foot, basically.
yeah.
Your feet.
Exactly. If you did a trick after, it does count. You know what I mean? It's like, shit like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, there's some meta rules to tricking. Like,
Just because, like, you're allowed to not stick the landing. You can
Yeah.
have recovery tricks, or you can perform, like, pop front flip, or pop aerial, or reverse pop aerial, however you want to define it. I mean, I'm being pretty loose with the terminology, because I'm not giving a shit. But essentially, like, you know, you don't have to, like, it's not so rigid in tricking. Like how I was describing, like, we don't value, like, whether or not you stick the landing.
we value pushing the boundary.
We-
That's our
Yeah, we
place,
value
you know?
you completing the trick without putting your hands down.
That's another unspoken rule is like maybe 90 off is where the trick has the cutoff of counting. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's like if you're 90 off a
Yeah.
trip, it's still trip, but if you're anywhere past that, you know.
Yeah, I'm gonna call that dub.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing, and we see that a lot with like World's First. We've kind of beat this topic with a dead, like as if it was a dead horse or something.
The
but-
horse, we're using the meat of the dead horse to beat it.
Essentially though, like short complete counts is complete, so get over it.
Yeah, fuck off, guys. No.
That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah. So, what's up?
I was gonna add to that whenever I'm really thinking about tricking in a more professional sense, it is a really hard like balance of. Understandably, there's going to be aspects of tricking that may be lost that we as a community, as a meta, like maybe not so much for a competitive sense, but we understand tricking as like there's music usually behind like tricks happening.
Yeah.
But during a competition, well, as much as I'd love to hear someone fucking play like fucking Lil Jon Turn Down for What or some bullshit during a pass, I'd rather not hear that during the literal fucking Olympics.
Well, okay, and so really quick touching on that, I wanted to kind of amend my point earlier about not caring so much on like cleanliness of landing or like, you know, cleanliness of performance, and say that like obviously the more competitive and more official we get, the more that matters, but it still doesn't detract
I feel like
from overall.
it's never gonna get to the same point
Right,
as
well-
gymnastics is my thing.
Yeah, I
You know
agree.
what I mean?
Fucking God.
Yeah,
I
like,
definitely
and I don't want it
agree.
to.
I
I
agree with
think
that
most
point.
trickers wouldn't want it to.
No, I agree with that point.
So-
I just think that, like, obviously at an Olympic level, I would expect you to. I would hope that you're not always recovering aerial out of your triple quirks.
Yeah, you're not
You
doing
know.
your little Nick Fry stumble, even though the Nick Fry stumble kind of
pretty
fucking
sick.
dope.
Kinda
Yeah,
dope,
yeah.
Like,
Shout outs to you, Nick Fry.
yeah, no, dead ass. I've done it a few times, but
So then going to the idea of like, how would this actually pragmatically occur? What would we as viewers see on the floor? And we discussed this for a while again before, 2 hours longer than we should have. But one of the ideas that we had kind of come up with was during a 1v1 scenario, right? There's not going to be music. There's going to be a fucking coliseum of like people watching.
yeah.
We don't know what the floor is. It'd probably be that's another
I feel
discussion.
like cheer floor.
Cheer floor.
Cheer floor, yeah.
cheer
seems
floor.
to be what most trickers trick on.
Well,
and
I think that'd be a cool poll to actually ask in the tricking group, even though it's
I
kind
agree.
of wild.
No,
But
I agree.
going back to it,
maybe just
what-
grass turf. I'm kidding. Don't do that.
No,
Please
I think. Well, and if like our options are like turf/grass, cheer floor and gym floor, I think that cheer floor is like the clear middle ground and is the most effective for tricking.
Yeah,
I mean,
and most trickers are gonna
I'm
trick on
totally,
that.
I'm totally
Yeah.
biased. I love cheer floor more than
Yes.
I love gym floor, but at the same time,
yeah, at this point
Also-
I've also tricked around the world, which is kind of cool to say. But yeah, I'm definitely not a fan of the bouncier springer floors. I prefer cheer
Yeah.
floor.
Sheet
I
floor.
did too. Well, it's better for swings. It's not like
Which
it doesn't
is what tricking
depress
has.
as much.
No other
you know?
sport has swings like tricking, and if it does,
Exactly.
it literally does like one.
Yeah.
They do one. You have fucking dudes doing like 25.
Exactly. So, okay, so how do we want to lay out? So, obviously, if tricking were to go to Olympics, I mean, maybe there might be an aspect of having the gymnastics, like, you throw a pass and, like, you're judged on that. But we're obviously going to have 1v1s. How are we going to outline these 1v1s to incentivize what we want to incentivize and de-incentivize what we don't want?
And I think a good way of doing that, at least in my opinion, and I would, again, love to hear what anybody else has to say about it, is the idea of, one, get rid of times. The only time, like, I want it to be a pass, and I want every tricker who is trained for months, years, however long, to come in with not only their best combos and best responses to these individuals that they're facing off. I also want to see them not be gassed out.
Yeah.
If they need a break in between each pass, the judges and other, scientists can look into, like, what is the most appropriate time, because for powerlifters, the heavier the weight, the longer of a rest time you need. So, tricking's more like hit cardio, if anything. Yeah, so figuring out what those numbers are, I digress. I would love to see a pass system where it is two individuals, training for months, showing their best combos, their best responses to these individuals that they're going at, with a pass system that, just for the sake of time itself, having timed breaks in between.
You have to make an arbitration at some point. You can't just say, like, you get an infinite break. Like, you have to set the time limit at some point. Like you said, I think it's a really good idea to outsource this to scientists. And tell them to, like, what's the best timed break? Like, is it 2 minutes? Is it 1 minute? Whatever the fuck. Let's say it's 2 minutes.
Yeah, whatever is empirically supported.
Yeah. Let's say it's 2 minutes. Regardless, I think this is good for, like, even tension building. Because even when you see gymnastics floor routines, you see them, like, just chilling out for a little bit just to, like, rest up before they do their big-ass pass. And you're like, oh, shit, what the fuck is going to happen? Like, you know what I mean? It's exciting. It's pretty reasonable I don't think they're officially timed, but they just kind of, like, sit there for a second. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think, like you said, scientists should do their research, see how long, like, maybe the time break should be. And to add on top of this, I think these breaks are even more important because the type of battle system I want to go to is one that's a little bit more fair than first person goes, second person goes, first person goes, second person goes. Because when you think about tricking on a meta level, is the first person has such a big disadvantage. Because think about it. Like, the first person goes, the second person can do the exact same combo they did and maybe add a little bit more, instant win. Like, just that's it. Like, no question about it. All right, second pass. Okay, second pass, he's going to bite it and do a little bit more. That's a win. Like, there's a clear advantage to going second.
I would actually rebuttal that it depends on... Well, I mean, that's
on the skill level.
That's almost a scapegoat at this point to say it depends, but I feel like the nuance behind that might be also the skill level. Like, I feel like somebody like Pinto versus most trickers using, battle tactics of some kind. If Pinto were to be going up against someone who he knows can combo out, and he's been doing it longer, he's probably not just going to do a banger from the jump, because you may be able to hit, like, nowadays it'd probably be like a quad cork, but a quad cork honestly probably loses to a triple cork combo in a battle sense. Even though the quad cork is far more difficult to dish out and it's still very rare. There's only literally, I think, less than like 6 people. I think for less than that.
It's definitely less than 10.
Comboing a triple cork
is still more impressive because
depends on the combo.
It has
because
weight.
G9 hook TDR triple cork is probably not as impressive as quad cork in my opinion.
I'd agree to that too.
Yeah,
I would too.
Yeah. And that actually we'll venture into that aspect later. But yeah, my rebuttal to that would, and I mean, I do agree with you for the most part though, that in most tricking battles, most trickers tend to do whoever goes first, they throw out a banger for them. Like, if their best move is a triple full, they're probably doing a big fat full snafu or something like that.
Yeah. Versus
crashing on a triple full.
So my thing is, like, we're talking about this on an elite level, and obviously, if these people are going to the Olympics, I would assume they have a very varied amount of tricks. Like, you know what I mean? They have a big tricking arsenal, and so, like, pretty much any trick that you can throw, they're gonna at least do some, like, relational aspect to it. Like, they're gonna be able to do some kind of thing that's related to it. And, like, really my main point about this is, like, as much as I like biting and tricking, as much as I like to, like, oh my god, they did this, but a little bit better, I don't want that to become the metagame. I want people to come up with their own original shit and, like, you know, just do shit. And so, like, my kind of fix to this, and you guys can agree or disagree, is I would like an even number of passes. So instead of doing 3 passes, we're going to do 4 passes. And we alternate the order that people go every time. Yeah. So the first pass, it's going to be person, like, let's say it's me and Jason. It's Jason goes first, and then I go first. And then we get a little break, maybe like a minute, 2 minutes, whatever the sign says. And then for round 2, it's going to be me going first, and then Jason goes second. And then we keep switching off, and then there's an even number of times that people go.
And I think it'd be far more interesting, instead of doing like a hard pass, fail, yes, no type of ranking system, I think gathering some level of points for each pass and letting every tricker show as much as they can versus somebody, you know, and what we see normally where it's like, okay, best 2 out of 3, well, who knows, maybe that person could have brought it back on the 3rd pass, and now there's a tiebreaker of some kind.
That's such a real problem. Were you going to say something, Jason?
Yeah, I've got it last.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
Well, essentially just that, like, in the, like, okay, so battles requiring breaks in between passes becomes more important on, like, on a truly competitive level. Because, like, okay, I think breaks in between passes are less important in terms of, like, a gathering environment where the battle is basically just a hype fest.
Yeah.
And like, you know, oh, we want to see who's responding instantaneously to this response, you know.
It's crazy to see, yeah.
Right, it's a little bit of the bite fest, like you were saying earlier.
Yeah.
But, like, also, like, as we choose to do more competitive, whether it's Olympic level or it's like a private institution, like
just high level, basically.
Right, high level, essentially. That's when breaks become more important.
Cowabunga. So something that I actually want to address too is thinking about how a lot of trickers think about tricking. This is a meta idea, but I call them the 3 branches or whatever you want to call them, the trifecta of some kind.
Yeah.
And it's, in my opinion, I think power, cleanliness, and creativity. Now, a lot of people will actually try to, you know, they'll interchange the idea of, cleanliness or creativity between style. Yeah. However, I think when
style is too broad of a word.
Most of us would agree that style is too broad of a word. It kind of
very subjective as well.
Yeah, because that shows that kind of talks about too much of one tricker's style. Like, even here, I'm saying it, but because I'm saying style in this context, it changes the meaning of it. However, with creativity, no matter the context, you kind of get what I'm going at.
It's a lot more objective. It's like, oh, he's doing shit that no one else is doing. That's, like, creative.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
And in a video for how they judge skateboarding, they actually use this idea of, like, you want to be the black sheep of the competition. Now, obviously, you could be the black sheep of a competition and just do 5 front flips in a row or, like, 5 front sweeps in a row.
Yeah. Just do, like, only floor stuff, no tricks. Like,
yeah, and you were unique. No one else is doing that, but you're probably not showing off every aspect of tricking, and I think that's the most important part, and why, even to this day, we still have controversy between who people would consider the best tricker in the world, Michael versus Shosei. Now, I think objectively, if a lot of us look at what Shosei is doing, the level of difficulty, the execution itself, holy shit, a new generation of tricking, and like him and Zen basically.
Yeah.
But then you look at how Mike does things, and it's kind of harder to explain, but it's just the shapes he's making with his body, the ideas for combos he makes.
Watch.
No, it's nothing against Shosei at all, but yeah, I when I'm personally watching him, sometimes I feel like he's a little stiff on some things, versus when I think of Mike doing maybe a downgraded version of that combo, I would think, oh, that's more appealing to me. But again, that's very subjective. And if it was in the Olympics, yeah, you're gonna want to see the best of the best, and if somebody just grossly outpowers you, I feel like that also kind of comes with the idea that they're, I don't know, like if you have someone like Johan versus Mike, and Johan does like his quad full swing combo against any of like one of Mike's like shuriken cutter fronts, like something that's really creative and unique and ends in a triple cork, it's kind of still hard to judge.
That is very hard to judge.
Again, I love watching Johan. Johan's one of my favorite trickers to actually watch. Johan Kiersla and Tillis, shout outs to Tillis, both of you guys are great. But I'm butchering your names, but
Yeah.
I would definitely say, Johan is not exactly what we would say the cleanest tricker.
Yeah.
We wouldn't also say.
Damn, this podcast is just roasting Johan. We've talked about Johan being ugly so many times.
He needs his own podcast. He needs his own episode to
I mean,
prove-
like, the dude's not, like, necessarily ugly, though, but, like, please don't put on braids. Like, just don't wear braids.
What are you talking about aesthetic shit?
I am, bro. I'm talking about...
Shut the
I'm
fuck
not
up.
talking about his tricks anymore.
the braids are fresh, keep them.
Alright, but really, I want to say, though, Isaiah, like,
Yeah.
you really do hit on what, like, you said it earlier. It's that if you're being creative, are you really representing tricking in its fullest? Like, because tricking, what is tricking culturally? Tricking is like what you said. It's boundary pushing. It's creative. It's twists. It's kicks. It's all of these things, and it's are
And
you being
more.
creative within that context?
But that's the important part within that context.
Right.
So that's the thing.
Well,
is like,
that's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
are you representing tricking?
Yeah, because
Accurately.
trickers love to say that everything is tricking. Like, that's
Right.
like a very famous, like, oh my gosh, like, anything you're doing,
Yeah.
it's tricking. But, like, let's be really pragmatic here for a second. Like, tricking is defined by a set of things. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, maybe not very strictly, but when someone does a gainer switch, I'm like, yeah, they're tricking. And
Yeah.
if they do it into a double core, I'm like, they're for sure tricking.
That's 100%.
I'm
They're
even
for
more
sure
sure they're tricking.
But
Yeah.
even if they're doing it during a b-boy or free running competition,
Yeah.
if somebody does
I'm
a
not
G-switch
sure.
double core,
Yeah.
that was tricking for a moment there. Like, you are tricking, you are adding tricking to your main repertoire, which could be
B-boy.
like free running
Yeah.
or b-boy. Sick, nasty, keep it going.
Yeah.
We'd love to see it. We'd love to see b-boying shit and tricking also.
Yeah,
but
it's
if you
cool.
have a b-boy,
I
you
didn't
can
say
tell
that.
when you shut up, bitch. When you see somebody doing like a fuck ton of windmills and flares, and then they do one scoot gainer. Well, the majority of that pass was mainly
B-boying.
b-boying, and
Yeah.
so you would probably argue that that was a b-boy doing a trick versus a tricker doing a b-boy move.
Yeah, it's like Bob Reese and when he was like at a
Doing
tricking
free-
battle,
Doing free
You're
running.
amazing.
but he was
Bob.
doing free running shit. It was cool. It was dope.
It was obvious,
and it was
yeah.
awesome for like a gathering
And
experience.
you still kind of contended
but
against Jacoby.
obviously
We wouldn't want that at the Olympics
Yeah,
representing tricking.
we need to set boundaries at some point. And it sucks because like obviously it doesn't have to be strict
Yeah,
boundaries.
no offense to Bob Reese or anything.
I'm gonna pause on that.
Yeah.
Instead of the idea of setting boundaries, it's, I guess, because you're gonna have competition, like in skateboarding, they don't just, and say they're the Olympics, you don't have someone that just goes straight to the Olympics.
Right.
You have national, you have international competitions. Well, I guess Olympics isn't.
those could be the
But
filters. I
you have
agree,
the
yeah.
filters that show who is the best of the best representing this area.
For sure. And I think what Frank is trying to say is, like, you don't bring a snowboard to a skateboard competition.
Yeah.
Is essentially what we're trying to suggest. And it's the same thing in battles. Like, you
Facts.
don't, or judging battles. You don't bring free runners in to judge tricking battles.
Or,
You know, you don't
or
bring-
do a tricking battle. Like, you'll have, because
Right.
now they're also outside of their element. It's like bringing a tricker to a free running competition. Dude's gonna do like maybe one, if you even know what it means, a dash, and then probably do some tricking combo afterwards, and everyone's gonna be like, that was cool, but you did a bunch of stuff on the flat surface. Like, we need you to move around the environment. That's free running. Tricking is like,
Right.
hey, you did double Kong over two people, and then double side. Bob Reese, holy fuck, dude,
Yeah.
that was wild.
It was crazy.
But yeah, it was, he's a free, you can tell it's a guy that's not as in the element for that scene, but in a gathering,
In a
who gives
gathering,
shit?
I'm cool with
that.
that.
was lit.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So semi-related to this topic, and then
You mean ultra related?
ultra related to this topic.
No.
Nice catch.
Stop.
I like that a lot.
Right.
Is okay. So within the context of a tricking competitive battle, and I have this unspoken theory that I haven't necessarily presented to the podcast, and it's that the future of tricking is ambidextrous tricking.
Yes.
And as much as I hate to admit it, Dan Press was right. I spent my entire
He was right about one thing.
he's right about multiple things.
Wrong.
And I spent my entire tricking career denying it up until this point, and I have to admit he was right about some
Oh yeah, he
things.
did say eights and beats was the same
I
thing.
hate so,
didn't he?
but
Right.
aside from that,
False.
no.
They are the same thing.
Listen to our Isaiah hasn't listened to our Access video yet,
You guys have no idea what you're talking about.
Because we haven't made it.
but so one thing I want to talk about is like, okay, so my theory is essentially like tricking can only go so far in terms of flips and twists. Like obviously, like the human limit to twisting is probably like 5 or 6 twists. The human limit to flipping is like 3 or 6 flips, and obviously we can only flip so many twists and so many flips, and vice versa or whatever. So eventually, like, we're gonna hit the maximum number of flips and twists we can do per single trick.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna obviously have to start like to diversify further.
And when Shosei does it, he'll say, "Guys, it's my world's first."
It's my first.
My first.
My first quad full in back out.
Also, coincidentally, the world's first. Go figure. But essentially, though, like, we're gonna get to a point where we can like no longer twist and no longer flip to our preferred direction, and we're gonna have to start incorporating ambidextrous twists and kicks, essentially. And it's like
so dark side shit.
Right, it's dark side shit. So it's like when it comes to a competitive stance, we're gonna have to come to like, especially at the highest tiers we get in terms of like competition, and it's like, you have to register as primary left or primary right side twister, so that you can differentiate between when you do. I mean, because like that's just the thing.
You're not wrong. And we have to judge how cool that is and how difficult that is.
Right.
And I love the idea of that, because I've finally started to let myself get into more sports. Like, I've found that I actually kind of enjoy watching basketball, or I've always loved watching skateboarding. But it is kind of fun to get attached to like a certain team or a certain player, and just kind of, you relate to them in some way, or you just like watching how they play or how they perform, and it's cool to kind of learn a little bit of nuances about them. Yeah. For instance, like in a tricker, it's like, okay, this person, whoa, like, Ethan Turner, the dragon pirate himself is, he's a right side twister. Okay, and you, for somebody that's new to tricking, they'd be like, oh, a lot of people don't seem to be that stout. What does that even really mean? They look at it, I was like, well, it doesn't look that different. But then they look at him do a dark side trick during a pass, and it's like he does, like Will Coney's has done this in a battle, and I feel like most people barely notice. Yeah. But he did a dark side double cork. Shit. And then immediately, with the fucking fuzzy, furry, like, gloves on with the hat, he does a dark side, he does his normal side double cork.
Shit.
And he just does it pretty effortlessly, to where people didn't even realize it was mirrored. But
I
it's still
honestly didn't notice. I don't know.
But it's something where, like, for judges, that's, if someone were to want to show that off in a pass and a 1v1, that they can do, because we're going to get to the point where Shosei's probably doing triple cork on both sides, where he does a triple cork on one side, stops, then goes the other way, and then only the judges could be,
right. Well, that's what I'm trying to explain. Is like, we're gonna get to a point.
I hate that idea. It's stupid and smelly.
I don't like it either. It's Frank knows. I obviously was like, I was very hesitant and resistant to the idea of ambidextrous tricks being the future of tricking, because I'm old head. And like, he was just right. It's the inevitable conclusion.
It is. I'm sorry.
And as a result of
that, and the same twist, or the different twists in the same combo.
Yeah. Oh, I hate
not just worse. With a pause, but with swings.
No, like intentional opposite side twisting and natural and making it look good.
Imagine cork swing opposite croc.
Right.
It's inevitable.
Please stop talking.
Yeah.
About this.
I mean, it really is gross, but like Frank's not wrong. And well,
y'all sound like Hitler in the fucking shit's gross. Get that away from degenerate. Like, just fucking.
Listen, single side twisting master race.
All right.
But what I'm trying to get at, though, is as tricking evolves to this point, which is my theory that it inevitably will, we will have to be able to judge it competitively.
Yeah.
And that's going to raise a whole lot of issues.
How do we?
All the subjective stuff.
Right. So how do we? I barely know how to judge one side.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to be the one to even talk about
ISIS, you talk. Well, okay, wait.
It's just an issue I wanted to bring up.
So you're going to talk about how the judges actually judge it, right?
I have an idea, yeah.
Okay, because before you talk about that, I want to say that, like, what we agreed on, like, beforehand is that we would have 5 judges. I think 5 is a really good number because it diversifies it a little bit. If we have 3 judges, it's like, if one of them is biased, it counts for a lot more than if one of them was biased with 5 judges. If that makes any sense. So it's like, the more you enumerate it, the better.
Though Trickstar judges were 5 judges.
Oh, were
3 of them?
No, there's 3.
No, there were 5, and 3 of them were the 3 amigos.
All right, well,
and
still,
that's the controversy.
5 is a little bit better than 3.
That's the controversy. That the 3 amigos were a whole judging unit that could turn this whole tide of a vote.
But we agreed beforehand
as a group. Essentially, it was who
Yeah.
does Three Amigos think the best tricker in the world is?
Okay, yeah,
That's what the problem with
that's the
Trickstar
problem
was.
with having three amigos. Don't have the same party and the same thing. Like, we have to have international fucking judges. All right.
I just wanted to tell you what was wrong with Trickstar.
Well, fuck you, Jason. I agree. But no, so I think that we agreed beforehand also that the judges should grade every individual pass. So, like, when me and Jason go together in the first pass, they will vote, like, they'll say, like, I gave Frank a 9 and Jason an 8, so Frank won that pass. But the important part is the enumerating, right? So
Right.
it's a scale from 0 to 10, right? 10 is, like, amazing, 0 is, like, shit. You know what I mean? And you enumerate it based off how well you subjectively think they did, based off, you know, power and cleanliness and creativity and shit like that.
Whatever metrics you're grading.
Yeah, whatever guidelines that you want to set up first. But so we're grading based off those metrics that we want to set beforehand or whatever the fuck.
My friend.
But so this comes back to the 4 rounds, right? The 4 rounds, some people might be saying, like, okay, if you're judging each individual round and you have 4 rounds, then you're way more likely to get a tie, right? But if we enumerate them, then we can take the averages of every judge, and you're way less likely to get a tie at the end.
Right.
And in fact, it's actually numerically almost impossible.
And I completely fucking agree with that idea.
This was actually one of the earlier points that I wanted to mention when I forgot my points because I'm bad and I have been drinking. But essentially that I was going to say that the even passes and the switching between is... essentially, the switching between and the grabbing the average score of each pass was ideally the most efficient way to make it fair. Essentially,
and I've been drinking.
Yeah.
and I have been drinking.
And on top of that, like, let's say we had a pass system where they graded each individual pass, but it was a yes or no. It was like Guthrie won or Andrew Franklin won, and it was not numerical. Then if Guthrie blew the fuck out of the water in one pass, but then kind of lost the other 2, then it'd be really debated, you know, who
It
won.
wouldn't be reflected in the score.
It would not be reflected in the score, but with a numerical score, yeah, it's a little subjective, but it reflects that at least a little bit better. You know what I mean? So...
Yep. And actually, before I forget it, there's another point that I want to bring up when it comes to the tricking meta and scene as a whole, where there's this really, at this point, I almost want to say misguided maybe idea of keeping tricking pure when it comes to letting tricking branch out in a professional sense, to where we have all seen and understand a lot of the problems that came from adrenaline, which I don't think was, and is still not to this day, the one and only representation of the tricking community, especially in a professional competitive sense, where I don't bring up Kojo's Trick Lab in this sense because they are strictly a tutorial website, and with mindsets and videos and all that, and check it out if you get the chance. Check them out. But
you're just saying that because you're a Kojo tutorial
your
person.
mom doesn't love you.
I'm kidding.
But
Really quick, I want to say that while I am pretty anti-adrenaline, I will admit I have some anti-adrenaline bias. I will say that adrenaline faces the same challenges that any mainstream tricking corporation will face, and it's whether or not you represent tricking accurately.
Yeah.
And I think that's
because
really
trickers
our
are so
problem.
counterculture.
Yeah.
That's really what our problem
Yeah.
with adrenaline is, and it's something that all companies are going to have to face and navigate. And I mean, I can't really fault adrenaline for navigating how
and
they
that's
are.
that's
I'm sorry.
no, that's fine. And that's something where I need to find a better word for it for now. But it's definitely something where I think it is maybe misguided and not fully aware of the nuances that it actually takes for something to blow up. Because I think we all understand that tricking as a whole definitely has a place in the professional scene. For the example of stunt work. Now, we do understand, like, maybe there are trickers out there that think about it, but, for me personally, I used to get kind of sad thinking about, people like Anise, where it's like, where's the latest sampler from this dude? I want to see him trick. I want to see him progress, but that man has a paycheck now to worry about, and that paycheck comes from his tricking, his body. So it makes sense that when he does it, well, he's going to do it for fun, and he's not going to try stuff that might put him out for a while. And now that I'm older and I actually understand the concept of money, I actually, to an extent, respect and understand it. And, personally, I would not want to see the entire tricking community go that route. And that's where I feel like something like the X Games level or Olympic level for tricking would actually incentivize professional tricking to push the boundaries instead of
playing it safe.
Playing it safe. And there's nothing wrong with playing it safe either.
I think it's a valid way to trick.
So you see,
it's because it's all about
professional tricking as an outlet for potential expansion in terms of skill in the sport, as opposed to rather like you doing it as like a profession where you have to be very careful, play it safe, and not push the limits.
Exactly. Like a gymnast themselves, like they're also very restricted. I don't know many. I've met a handful of people who have like become Olympians and who trained for the Olympics since they were like 13 and up, and a lot of them they do gymnastics for fun, but they do it in very controlled, non-ratchet environments, which just isn't as fun. And that's something where I would never want to see that spirit of tricking gone entirely. However, I feel as though that having a competitive version of it and to a likeness of skateboarding, I think meshes perfectly with the spirit of tricking where, again, if you were to have trickers professionally do this, these skateboarders, apparently they not only make money just from sponsorships, paying for them, they also, they get the revenue of notoriety and opportunity to be in whatever it is, commercials, to be just, like how Red Bull athletes kind of get those opportunities to help them out.
Right.
And something with that is, I think overall, tricking would fit amazingly in a large-scale competitive sense that may not have the gathering spirit where it's, the bite-off, it's the hype, it's the ratchet, it's people doing the, splits and jerking it in front of the person like Danny Graham did in the White Lotus battle, where, that might not fly in a large competition like that, but you know what, if someone were to still do some pinto shit where they're just they watch somebody do their pass and they look at them from across and they just point their toe down while looking at them, that's stuff that I don't want to see go for sure.
I think there's a difference between respectful showmanship that can appear in a professional and elite settings such as the Olympics per se. I think that element shouldn't be lost, especially in the professional setting. I think you can still bite someone professionally. I think you can still express what is lacking in your opponent's style or tricking.
Fuck you didn't point your toes.
Right. I think there's still room to say it, like you said, express it appropriately. You don't need to be being vulgar. You don't need to be
handsy,
grabbing your shotgun from the ground and shooting a bird in the sky.
I actually kind of like that one. Keep that one, brother.
All right. No, but I think it actually goes. It goes a little bit beyond that too. Not only I think skateboarding's a perfect analogy for this shit because we've seen skateboarding in our lifetimes go for something that was just this underground thing that was barely anyone knew about it, and now it's literally in the fucking Olympics.
That's kind of as high as you can get, boys. Ladies.
Yet right now we do not see the spirit of skateboarding go away. I have not seen the spirit of skateboarding go away. I've personally seen skateboarding videos where people are skateboarding on broken skateboards. Literally it's broken in half. And they figured out a way to do tricks on it. And, it's they do crazy shit. Yeah. But, obviously that's not going to happen in an Olympic setting because the Olympic setting is a little bit more, rigid and stuff like that. But I think even if tricking was to get to that level, we would still see our fucking Cody Joneses, our fucking Jordan Alexanders, our everyone that, just does weird-ass fucking shit.
Yeah.
We love you.
Even more so, I think, a lot of trickers may be wondering, what would make a tricking event different from, a martial or a gymnastics or a martial arts event or whatever?
Well, that's such a... I can't believe I'm actually saying this, but that is such a fucking muggle question.
Well,
not to you, just
No, of course. Well,
right.
Something that makes, it highlights it... Okay, so, obviously a lot of tricking comes from gymnastics. Mm. And that's the fact that, you can do fulls, you can do front fulls, etc., or whatever. But what tricking has is this ability to take off and land on just one leg. Mm-hmm. And so that alone increases just the potential of creativity for even just flips. Yeah. Right? So
and you don't even need to flip to trick.
Yeah, and exactly, and I mean, and we're talking about like, if you're only doing just twists or vertical tricks and you're landing on different legs, like that's creative in its own right. But like I mean, gymnastics is always unified landings, unified takeoffs. Yeah. Where tricking has the nuance of having sequential, single leg, and unified all in one, and you can compound those into even more unique transitions.
It's mathematically insane.
Right. I mean, just the amount of options that you can show off, like where a gymnast does like front flip, vanish round off, punch,
I hate you.
back up.
They
fall.
do. It's vanish round off. You're right.
I mean, I'm trying to convert it to like tricking language. A tricker could do like some sort of redirect into their full, and then like a bound or like a punch or a pop or even reverse pop into like a quirk, double full.
And something that I remember was worried about, and a lot of us trickers were very worried about it. With would the general populace even be interested in it? And when you look at skateboarding, well, clearly there's a fucking interest. It's in the Olympics now. But one of the things that I've seen, I think we've all seen it, when we go to, for instance, like to a sports bar, and they play those, basically they're just like show reels of like how ridiculousness is, where it's just showing like crazy videos of like basically shit on YouTube. It'd be like top 10 like craziest people ever, but they show people like doing like getting fucked up and hitting like jumping off a building onto like a wooden chair and like some world star stuff. So they show all the time. I see reruns of this, the Red Bull and tricking battles in Korea. I've been out with my family, and my parents and my grandparents have seen and like what it like on the screen. They're like, "Hey, isn't that what you do?" And
they're
I'm
using
like,
it in movies.
Dude, I literally would be same as you. I was out at lunch at a bar with my boss, and we literally saw Justice trick on the TV.
What?
Justice Buchanan?
Justice Buchanan.
Justice, I fucking love you.
I messaged him.
Yeah.
I just saw you. It was Chive TV.
Chive sends a lot of that shit. Well, it's interesting because, like, I think muggles are actually interested in it. Me, as a muggle, I was super interested in gymnastics itself, and I think gymnastics is, like, significantly more boring than tricking. Especially when you put it in a battle context. Yeah. Holy fuck, people would lose their shit. I don't care if they understand what tricks are, but, like, seeing the head-to-head, like, one person throws one trick, one person throws the other, you see the crowd go wild. Like, people are going to get excited about it. Like, I don't care what you say.
Yeah,
like,
again, that's personal opinion, but this whole thing is our personal opinion for the most part, unless we try to state it as a fact, understand that preface. But yeah, definitely agree with that, where I taught gymnastics, and it's incredibly rigid and, for me, boring, personally. And a lot of the kids that I would teach, a lot of them ended up moving to the parkour classes that I was teaching, or they just gave up on that. They stopped asking their parents to spend hundreds of dollars a week for them to learn how to do a cartwheel and a round off at the pace that the teacher sets, and instead they started going to open gyms, and they became trickers. And they were like, cool, I get to just kind of do whatever I want.
Yeah,
and
dope.
I can ask other people for help around me.
Right.
But I would definitely say tricking as a whole is, for the people that don't want it to progress forward, and for the people that do, I really do want to hear that discussion. I want to understand where both sides come from, because I've been on the fence for both. I'm at a point, however, where I would love to one day see tricking in the spirit of tricking actually be present in the X Games. If it happened in the Olympics, holy fuck. Yeah. But
I'm sorry, but I want to be 40 years old with the boys gathering together because tricking is in the Olympics, and we're about to see some shit go down, and just like
say son.
Yeah, just I don't know, just have some drinks and just be like, yo, look at this crazy shit. Like, that's something I want. Like, I for a long time, like you said, I was really opposed to like tricking going mainstream, but
I was too.
I think like it's kind of like it has. Don't get me wrong, it has its pros and cons, but I think we can maintain the spirit of non-mainstream tricking even if tricking has gone mainstream. And like I said, a lot of this shit has reflected in me looking at skateboarding. Like, I just look at skateboarding and I'm like, this is how tricking is going to progress in the future, because they're just so similar in terms of
skateboards
being underground, being weird, being creative. You know what I mean?
Yep. And
sorry, what were we gonna say?
No,
I was just gonna wrap this up. I was just gonna like last section. I kind of wanted to hit on just a weird idea that like it might stick, it might not, but I just thought it was cool. Is so we were researching obviously skateboarding, like how they judged it, and they did 2 45-second passes of like they could do whatever the fuck they
this
wanted.
is in the Olympics.
This probably should have been in the beginning of the video.
Yeah, no, we kind of hit on it a little bit, but they do 2 45-second passes, and then they have 5 attempts at the biggest trick they could do. And as soon as they said that, I think all of us perked up and we're like, "Whoa, wait,
Like,
hang on."
Yeah.
So I think that's actually a genuinely cool idea. And when you think about the Olympics, like most of like gymnastics, skateboarding, ice skating, even snowboarding, all this shit, they're never 1v1. They're never head on. They're always like individually valued and then compared. And like I think tricking, as weird as it sounds, could benefit from a system like that. I know it's a little controversial to say that because we think of tricking as like 1v1, but I think it could benefit from something like Johan pre-prepared like a combo for like years, and he was perfecting it, and he was drilling it all the time to the point where he could do it every single time, and like he's gonna showcase it now in these 2 passes, in
front of the whole world.
In front of the whole world, he's debuting it,
and he's gonna fucking stomp the fuck out of it.
And then right afterwards, he's gonna get 5 attempts or 3 attempts, whatever the fuck you want to say, at like the biggest fucking trick he could do, or the biggest 2 trick, or the biggest 3 trick, whatever thing he could do. So like, I just think that's sick. Like, I know you guys have thoughts.
I'm glad that you brought this up, because this is how I anticipate. Like, this is how I predicted something at like if tricking were in the Olympics to go. Like, obviously we would have 2 events similar to skateboard. The events would be like a 1v1 battle, and then the events would be like an overall like tricking event. Where you would have like 2 passes to do a combo. Whether or not it's the same combo is up to you, and you know, like, are you determined to...
Do you want to show consistency, or do you want to show diversity?
Right.
I guess
yeah, exactly. And, like, maybe you don't land the first one, and you're, like, really determined, like, that's a really good combo, and you're certain that doing it the second time will be the one, or whatever. But aside from that, and it's, like, you have those 2 passes to show off, like, combo diversity and, like, power and your prowess with combos, but then you also have, like, a chance at, like, power tricks, so you have, like, 3 passes with some time in between, where you can try... you know, whatever you want, whether or not it's the same trick over and over again, or different power tricks that you land and want to repeat to show consistency, like you were saying earlier, or it's you want to show off 3 different power tricks that you're always landing, you know, like essentially, you know, using something like this and then grading it on an individual level compared to everyone else's individual performance, as opposed to like a 1v1 tournament bracket style.
And that's not to say they can't be held side by side. I think 1v1s could be a separate category versus the single event thing, whatever. Go on.
No,
go on.
And agreed. And because like maybe you're not very good at battling, maybe you're better at, you know, prepared combos that you've trained for years, like you were saying. And like, you know, this is the time to show.
Because battles, you need to be a little more flexible. You have to be like, oh, this person did this.
Instantaneous. And a lot like Isaiah mentioned earlier, like you might have a lot of battle anxiety where you step up to the plate and suddenly you don't remember what the fuck you had planned for the first pass.
Right.
You know, I'll let you talk in just a second, but I just wanted to highlight, you know, essentially like, you know, we can grade it on this way because that's how the Olympics and like, you know, skateboarding and gymnastics are graded in the Olympics. It's like on an individual level compared to everyone else, and then it ranks individually down, and you know,
it's not tournament style,
right? And you could do that, but we could still have the tournament style because that's very much in line with tricking. Maybe just compared to other tournament styles.
It's just 2 different strategies at that point, you know.
Right, so. And I think it makes sense to have 2 different events for it because, like you said, you may not be good at battles.
Well, because the thing that incentivizes this, I like that it incentivizes the biggest fucking tricks or the biggest fucking combos you do. Like, just whatever the fuck your limit is, go to that. Like, you know what I mean? Battles doesn't necessarily incentivize that. And that's why I like this 2 category system.
Right, having just multiple options for triggers, like you may suck at battles, so you prepared this combo for years.
Yeah, but Isaiah, you had some stuff.
Yeah, it's actually so like 3 things. The first thing I want to go over is like that idea of like you have people like Ethan Turner, who I have talked to extensively about this, are not actually battle trickers. They don't give a fuck about battling. They only do it because too many fucking people ask him to do it, right? But when he does it, he fucking clears the house with everybody, right? But if, let's say someone like Ethan Turner wanted to compete, but he's like, I don't want to battle, but it would be cool to showcase to the world the best like tricking. And it's like, well, for someone like Ethan, he might do better by not even bothering signing up for the 1v1s and rather doing something where it's like the power tricks and best combo. And it's something where it's like he's not going up against anybody. The floor is his. The music choice could be his too. I like the idea of that.
Yeah, music you can pick whatever at that
for
point.
that point. Yeah.
I think really quick to interject. I think that music is most optimal in like in an individual setting, but it's completely unfair in a 1v1 setting because like one person's music preference could be entirely different than the
I know
other.
that Jason hates polka music, so I'm gonna and it hypes me the fuck up. So I'm gonna put polka music.
You knew my weakness before I even started.
the fuck is polka music? Anyway, so
But essentially that's what I'm saying. Like individually, I think music's okay, but like and I think that's what you're trying to get at too, because I think you didn't like music in terms of like 1v1s.
Yeah, in a 1v1, like I know for a fact, like I get hyped to sometimes weird ass songs that like I get hyped to favela trap, which is just Portuguese trap music.
Yo, that shit's hype though.
But your mom. But like a lot of it is like stuff that like some of the guys at the gym are not going to be going into. But that's okay. So something where I would think of it is there's an instance of like another split between, you know, there's the 1v1 battles, but then there could even be something where now you have biggest trick. And that could be something where it's like the judges, you know, the athletes all, you know, come together, they speak with the judges, and the judges are like, okay, you have one move that you get to name as your setup. You may change your setup, but you may not have more than one setup into this move, and you can't do a combo. It needs to be one of your biggest moves or 2 to 3.
Yeah.
And I say 2 to 3 because if you think of something as crazy as a trip, well, that's almost a combo, but I feel as though most of us would say it, you know, it's
a power move.
Yeah.
It's not a trick individually.
Yeah, like dub
shorty,
is
you know.
yeah, dub. If you do that in a pass, people are going to consider that as one banger. Versus, it gets to a point when you see Tiki Woo's sampler where he's doing shit like dub, trip. Like that's silly, that's goofy, that's illegal, go to jail kind of shit. But it's like at that point, how would he come?
Do
to
not pass go. Like $200.
But imagine you're as you know the athlete. How do you stop it from being where it's like, okay, what was your setup? Was it just a scoot? Okay, cool. But now you did more than 3 moves. But holy shit, you did dub times 3. You did dub times 3, and then proceeded to triple cork at the end of that.
Right.
Insane, right? But for something like biggest tricks, this is just my idea, and I'd love to hear whatever anybody else has to say too. Where I want to know if somebody is doing like a dub swing quad. Or even better, where it's something where if somebody does a cart dub trip, and that's their biggest move for that pass, they stomp it, they're playing it safe, because maybe by the time tricking's in the Olympics, that's playing it safe. Dear fucking Christ.
Yeah. Well, okay, so that's my thought process when I'm making the cutoff of 2 or 3 tricks. I say 3 tricks because when tricking gets to the point where I could do, like, let's say 4 dubs or even 5 dubs to trip, then I'm like, I'm no longer impressed by the fact that you can, like, I guess, make that endure as long. I actually want you to do a higher twist value with a shorter amount of tricks. Does that make any sense? It's like, I would rather see a dub quad than a dub trip or something
Agreed,
like that.
Yeah. And so less of an endurance idea and more of, like, max power, max efficiency, and the smallest,
the boundary's getting broken.
Yeah. So if somebody were to do a, let's say for the time, snatch, cannon, swing is still insane, like no one's done it really. It's difficult and it's done for the first time at the Olympics. That's something where, well, the judges will say, for instance, this person used touchdown rise as their setup. Their main 2 moves that they did were a snatch cannon and then they swung that into a gainer.
Yeah.
Even though it's just a gainer,
insane.
We'll all understand what came before that, and it adds on greatly to what happens next.
I agree.
That's something with like the power tricks where you could even have it to where if someone's bold and ballsy enough, you could have somewhere where it's like, I'm gonna make my setup be double B swing, or like if somebody in the competition does like a cart dub trip, this person could come and be like, someone did that, and in their mind they could go ahead and say, to the judges, my setup's going to be aerial. And so they do aerial dub trip.
Yeah.
That's something where, if you announce it, it's a harder setup, and that could play into it, right?
Yeah. I like the setup idea too because it allows for multiple tricks to happen. Like TDR Valdez, I would consider a setup Like, even though it's 2 tricks individually.
And
it's
Valdez
like,
is your true dub setup.
yeah, Valdez is the true, like, oh, that's the trick he did into it. But TDR Valdez is the setup into
That you're
whatever
using.
the fuck.
Yeah.
So the 3 tricks or the 2 tricks.
Exactly. So someone like Johan, when he does his like scoot something to aerial fucking
Skip
triple
aerial.
full, skip aerial to triple full. I don't think it's fair to tell him like he can't use that scoot because the scoot helps his aerial, so let him use it. Is my idea, and that's the one thing for the power moves where it's similar to gymnastics. They kind of have the same thing. They have the routine, but instead of a routine, it's biggest trick. And you give the athletes multiple times to try it. You give them the floor. You give them their music. You get them what they need, and that's for the big power moves. And again, with all of this is all just, it's just kind of fun, like, brainstorming stuff, and it'd be really cool to
This
hear
is
what
very
other people come up.
experimental. Like,
Yeah.
no tricking battles have been formatted like this, and it might be shit, it might be good, like, I don't know.
Exactly,
Right.
and with that, I also would actually encourage most of the anybody listening to actually go ahead and look at skateboarding competitions. Look up how they're judged, look up what they do, and it's very crazy to see the level of commonality between the two sports.
Oh, yeah.
Well, not just skateboarding. I think even looking at like gymnastics and looking at martial arts tournaments,
Ice skating, too.
ice skating.
Yeah, ice skating,
I mean, these are the thing is though is like because none of these tricks accurately represent tricking on their own. It's going to take tricking is going to need its own unique rules to be governed.
Right.
And the same way that it's like each of these own individual sports need their own unique rules, and it's going to take the
Probably
benefit,
some trial and error, too.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's going to take some trial and error, and the benefit
hopefully
that
not
tricking
in the Olympics, the error part occurs.
right. Well, and the benefit that tricking has is that a lot of these other frameworks that tricking already takes parts from, like gymnastics and skateboarding, already exist as competitive sports that are competed on the world stage, like the Olympics, for example. So we can take the Olympic rules for gymnastics and take the Olympic rules from skateboarding and take the Olympic rules from like martial arts competitions and like try to create some amalgamation of that, or take what works and what doesn't work, or whatever.
Or even if somehow like none of it at all, and even nothing from skateboarding, it somehow makes it something. If it works, we'll see. But obviously, we're not the ones going to be thinking of it.
Right.
But,
no, these are just ideas on how. Like, I mean, because battles, there's just so much to talk about with battles. I don't.
Yeah.
I think even with
I don't even think we hit on everything.
the hour and
No,
15
we
alone
didn't.
that we've spent already recording just doesn't do the conversation of battles justice. Like,
Yeah.
this is 100% a multi-part
hey,
episode.
Justice.
Exactly. So we want to hear your guys' thoughts. I think that's a good place to...
Right.
wait, Isaiah wants to say something really
Sorry,
quick.
and I'm sorry to extend it more, but I actually have last 2 things.
Yeah.
So similar to also gymnastics, not a routine because that just sounds whack as fuck, but it basically is. But somebody, like in the athletes all in there also, they don't have to tell anybody about it. As a matter of fact, they shouldn't. And it's something where it's like, they literally have been training these combos. Like, let's say their best 2 or 3 combos, whatever they think they need to do, the nuances filled out by conversations that go on a lot longer and get paid to do this. But they have combos that they come up with over months, perfect, like Johan says. But the difference between that and then a 1v1 battle would be that those combos are by themselves to whatever music they want, if they want any, and it's just them trying their best to land this combo and to show not only what they think their best is, but also what they think the best representation of tricking is through, again, whatever it changes, but the idea for now that I think we've come up with is like, that demonstrates all aspects of tricking from power to cleanliness to style, to creativity. And again, the difference between that is in the 1v1s, you're still going to have that rebuttal, that maybe even a bite against your opponent, versus with the combo idea, it's friendlier competition for maybe someone like, Ethan Turner, or maybe he might actually be interested in it because there's not nearly as much pressure, and you don't have to be, because part of being the showman in that is like you are kind of being a dick to your opponent.
Right.
Yeah.
And Ethan's like one of the kindest people I know. So
That's
it's
the
like...
kindest pirate dragon I've ever met.
Yeah.
Right. I really think the most important thing about battles is, like, obviously understanding that there's no one perfect method, but also that, and you've said it multiple times throughout the podcast, and I really think it's what we've all been trying to say is that battles maintain the spirit of tricking. It does
we don't want to kill that.
Right.
Yeah.
It's important that battles express the spirit of tricking through its fullest.
Yeah.
And obviously tricking can't be expressed ideally through time, I think is what we've come to agree. And you need to be able to push the limits. You need to be able to fail to some degree.
Yes.
You need to be able to.
There should be some leeway. I think gymnastics doesn't allow for that because they're like, you have to stick it perfectly. You have to do this.
And that definitely kills it because whenever I've sat down and watched a lot of the Olympics for gymnastics and the routines from floor and not floor, because there's a lot more than just the floor, and it's very, very interesting. But when I'm in my head, pretty much knowing that they're usually going to land and their points are only going to be deducted based off of whether or not they stumble, it still does bring a level of excitement to me. However, it's not nearly as much as tricking for me. It's more predictable than tricking for sure. And I am aware of my bias against gymnastics, where I do personally think that it isn't as aesthetically pleasing to me. But I think that's a spot.
Did you have anything else to say, Jason? Yeah, so I mean, I think that wraps it up pretty good. I mean, we hit on a lot of stuff. I think there's still there's so much discussion to have about this shit, about who should be judging, how should we be judging. Like, a lot of it is really subjective, but I feel like we outlined some pretty good principles for
at least some good talking points.
Yeah, like stuff that should be discussed within the tricking community, at least.
Think about the hours that it took. It took years to form the rulings that are for skateboarding in the Olympics now.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
There's a lot to cover over than just one podcast, and a lot of subjects are a lot more nuanced than people will ever want to believe.
Right. As much as we want to give the answers, like definitive answers, simply put, our podcast can't.
We want those conversations to start. But, we definitely don't have the answers.
Well, we need larger community involvement. And that's the thing is, if your organization that sets rules is restricted to community input and, especially the community that's participating in that sport, then, you're bound to fail. You can't succeed without hearing what the community has to say going against them.
Absolutely. It definitely has to be made. I remember when we were watching the skateboard shit, they had a really big problem because one of the corporations that runs, I think at the Olympic level, skateboarding shit
from France,
is a French rollerblading company.
And has nothing to do with, skateboarding whatsoever.
It's not run by skateboarders, which kind of, sucks.
Yeah, while the American and Canadian, these aren't shared. These are separate entities, are both entirely run by mainly skateboarders who understand the sport, and care about the sport versus, not gonna lie, it's kind of weird that it's cool that a rollerblade is I like skateboarding, but it's you're still missing out a lot.
You shouldn't be the one that's organizing Olympic events
for skateboarding.
I bet you they just had the most money. Let's be real. I think that's just what happened. So I think it's really important that it stays trickers that not only are trickers, but are relevant trickers that know the shit that's happening right now, that know what's important for these battles and for the future of tricking and shit like that.
Yeah.
So
and
God, that's a whole other podcast just to figure out who gets to judge.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
And that's another thing is that one last note is that the community has to stay vigilant about this.
Yeah.
And it's
we gotta eat that shit out. If something happens, nah.
So Travis Sloan, if you ever feel like doing something else, or if anybody else feels like doing something else, definitely have a certain criteria for the judges if you want to make it representative of tricking on a more professional level. But don't ever, if you want to fucking have anybody as a fucking a judge, if it's a gathering, who gives a shit?
Yeah, if it's a gathering, I don't care. But
right, because gatherings are a much more casual environment. But if your intention is to present tricking in a professional, competitive sense, then you have to have strict rules and adhere to them. And
so we need Brian Skinner, the judge in the Olympics.
I'm not completely opposed to
that. That sounds great.
I think he could catch up with what's going on in the tricking scene if he
I don't think he needs to. I think he's already...
All right, that's a good place to leave it off. This has gone very long. But thank you, Isaiah, for being on here.
Yeah,
it was a pleasure.
Thanks for having me. This is really intense.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve French, for our logo.
Alex Hunter for being the logo.
Yep, and Stephen Rogers for our intro song.
It is the best.
Yeah, exactly.
Steve.
Skunk Island, I think. Anyway, all right, see you guys.